those for the end. So Alex should be putting up the presentation. Perfect. So we'll both be, for those of you who haven't met Alex, if you just want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hey, sorry, still just trying to pull this all up. Hey, I am Alex Cross from headquarters. I work with our chapter services and member services, and trying to help everybody just get through, just in general, keep our chapters going correctly and everything, with the reports and the processes. So happy to help you guys out tonight. And can everybody see the presentation? Do I have this up correctly?
Looks good to me. Okay. And those of you who I haven't met before, I'm Kirk Omelinsky. I'm the executive director of Tau Beta Pi. So I work with Alex and the other 14 staff members who do various roles down at headquarters in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I thought about a lot for several years about doing these kind of chapter chats, and now the circumstances seem to be even more compelling to do these type of things. So this is the first. I expect we'll be doing more on different topics that all of you find relevant, and we'll find different presenters and speakers to talk about different things. But first, we figured we'd talk a little bit about the association and the chapter status and where we're at. And as I mentioned at the start, if you've got questions, feel free to put those in the chat window and we'll get through them. So the topics for tonight, just some basic general association updates, some information about chapters and things we're doing and how that's going to impact you. And then we'll finish off with some question and answer time. So in the area of things going on with the association, we wanted to let you know about some changes to the deadlines for different awards, nominations, reports, an update on the status of what's going on actually at headquarters in Knoxville, Tennessee, and then an update on different events that the association had planned for this semester and then going into the fall. So deadlines. First, the scholarship deadline has been moved to April 20th. So if you were working on that or your chapter members were interested in applying, they've got about 3 more weeks to get those in. That's primarily just because of what's going on right now, and we know faculty are pressed for writing letters of recommendation. So we want to give everybody a little bit more time to get that stuff taken care of. The award program, so our Outstanding Advisor, McDonald Mentor, and Laureate nominations are typically due on April 1st. Those are being pushed back probably April 20th, possibly May 1st. We'll be sending out a notice when that date is actually finalized. I'll let Alex talk a little bit about some of the chapter reports and what's going on with them in terms of due dates for that.
So like I mentioned earlier, we want to see you all succeed. We want to be flexible and try to continue to get everything in that we need to, but at the same time, recognize the realities of the situation that kind of prohibit those from being on the same timelines as usual. But going forward, just kind of starting with the membership process where a lot of your chapters are probably at right now. And the process with the report of election, while it may not fall in the same timeline as it previously did, if your chapter plans to hold a virtual initiation, we still want to get those in 2 weeks before the initiation, if at all possible, or as early as possible if, some kind of other situations prohibit that. Ratification ballots for right now, the deadline remains April 1st. The votes for those by your chapters can be conducted electronically. So if you've not already, I suggest, getting a poll sent out to your chapter with the ratification ballot you should have received earlier this year or back at the end of last year. Get those votes in and get that turned in. You can send it to me directly, or you can send it to our chapters account, which is chapters@tbp.org. And we will get those processed. There may be some alternative planning for those ratification ballots if we don't get enough in to ratify the amendments from last year's convention. But for right now, we're going to try and stick with the April 1st date. And the year-end reports listed on the screen there, the chapter survey, the financial report, credentials, as well as your project reports are all still scheduled for June 1st, but at the same time, we'll be flexible with those. You know, the main thing is if there's any kind of delay for any of these things, you can just shoot me an email or call us at headquarters and we're going to work with you. We're not going to be too hard on about it, but we just have to know more than anything. So but that's about it there.
Cool. One thing I'll add to Alex's statement about the ratification ballots, we would typically go and extend deadlines for things when we don't think that people will be able to get them done on time. Unfortunately, the Constitution mandates an April 1st deadline, so we don't have the ability to extend that. So that's one of the factors when we're encouraging all of you to get your ballots in. The other option is the council does have the option to vote for chapters that don't turn in a response or turn in an invalid response. However, the council doesn't like to do that unless there are circumstances where, okay, well, 74% of chapters voted in favor and we needed 75. So if we're well below that threshold, the council may choose not to act, and we may be looking at alternatives to potentially resubmit those to the chapters with a longer deadline if possible. So we'll keep you posted on that, but whenever possible, please do try to get those still submitted. The one thing I did want to mention from a logistics standpoint that I didn't mention at the beginning is we are recording this presentation and plan to post it on our Google site that we're using for the chapters this semester, and we'll also make this presentation available online as well. So, okay, so I think we can go on to the next slide. A little bit of information about headquarters and our status in terms of what's going on right now in Knoxville. Most of the staff now is working from home. That started this past Wednesday and will go to at least April 3rd. We're reviewing the situation every week and letting the staff know. There are a few people in the office to answer phones and deal with some in-person type arrangements. Those circumstances may change as the situation develops. The good news is we still have the ability to answer email, get all our emails, and our phone system is such that we can actually take calls off-site. So we've implemented a lot of those procedures. We basically, because the office is on the campus of the University of Tennessee, we follow the University of Tennessee's requirements and anything with the state of Tennessee. So it's possible that the university will shut down or the state will mandate that we shut down. And if that's the situation, we will be completely working off-site. Alex, I know there have been some questions about insignia and image items and ordering and how people might get them. If you wanted to chime in on a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as of right now, unless the situation, as Kurt mentioned, with UT changes, I will be in the office on Mondays, and I will have a few of my staff in on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Those are the only days we'll basically be able to send items out for right now. We'll try to get every order that comes in between those days out the day that one of us is there. So that may add a few extra days of processing and shipping time. So if you're still having any kind of chapter activities or wanting to distribute items to your members, just a heads up that there's going to be some extra processing time. So get those in as soon as possible. On the point of graduation regalia, same thing. If you're going to order that, if that's still going to happen, you'll want to get those orders placed as soon as possible. And kind of second on top of that, if you all are familiar with the process, a lot of chapters restrict the purchase of graduation regalia to their members, where the chapter distributes them for requirements or whatever. We're considering rescinding the restriction ability right now just to allow individual members to buy directly. I'm going to talk with Kurt a little bit more on that because that just got brought to my attention today. But since chapters can't really distribute the items right now, we don't really want to have individual members wondering how they could get something for their commencement or graduation ceremonies. So, but yeah, just a little heads up. If there's any time that you need to order anything still, just give it a couple extra days, or you can reach out to me directly and we can see what we can do.
Awesome. Some information about different association events that have been planned or canceled. So many of you who have not yet attended a district conference, we did cancel all the district conferences across the country that hadn't yet happened. That impacted about half the districts and about 154 of our 250 chapters. District directors, if they haven't already, will be reaching out to you to discuss doing virtual meetings or other one-on-one type virtual meetings or group virtual meetings to discuss chapter operations and help support you and your activities throughout the rest of the year. We did cancel all Engineering Future sessions through August 1st, so we're not taking any new requests until the fall. Obviously, as circumstances change, we'll look into that. The Executive Council typically or was planning to meet in April and July in person. Their April meeting has been postponed and is still being conducted, but being conducted virtually. And they're assessing whether or not to meet in July when we have a better idea of what things will look like in July. We've suspended most other activities. So chapter installations, we had 2 of those this year, and they actually were completed before this outbreak really became a huge issue. We had an inspection visit that we're postponing. Alumni events have also been suspended at this point. District director visits are most likely not going to happen unless there's an interesting situation, just for the fact that most district directors visit for initiations or chapter meetings, and those are unlikely to happen at this point. And finally, the big question I've been getting is what's going to happen with convention. Convention is 3rd week of October in Atlanta, Georgia. At this point, it is still on, but we're going to continue to review and assess that situation as we move forward. And if we do need to postpone it, cancel it, whatever, we will let you know at that point. But I expect that that decision won't happen for a couple months as we see how things develop. So a little bit about updates related more to chapters and what's going on with all of you, and some general information that we wanted to provide specifically to you and different activities related to the operations. I'll talk a little bit about the status form that we use to poll the chapters, a little bit about operations, the online initiation ceremony, and Alex will have a little bit about initiation fees and how we might handle that this semester. So we sent out a status form to the chapters on March 14th, and we've gotten 155 responses so far. So if you didn't have a chance to respond to that, you can go ahead still and check that email and put your information in there. If you've got updates to your chapter status, you're more than welcome to complete the parts that are relevant to keep us up to date on what's going on with your chapters. It's been a huge resource for us to know what's going on your campus, finding out if you're at the point of electing, initiating, etc. And as I noted, we will send out this presentation after the meeting and make it available on the web if you do want the link to the form. And we're also, because there's nothing confidential in the results section, that's available too if you want to see what your peers are doing. We also have the ability, you can actually go in, thanks to one of our district directors, Neil Bussett. He allows viewing of the data by district. So that might be helpful for you to see what's going on with the chapters in your area. In terms of chapter operations, obviously in most cases, all of your activities have been suspended on campus. We encourage you to utilize virtual meetings and different things like that to continue having officer meetings, maybe business meetings, whatever types of things that are critical to keep your chapter going. We've established 3 working groups to kind of look through different areas and provide some best practices and recommendations for the chapters. So we broke that into meetings, voting, and character evaluation. And we've got, I think, 3 people assigned to each. If you're at all interested in contributing to those efforts, I've put the contact information for Natalie, Neil, and Sandia on the slides. If you wanted to be involved with those, that would be great. We hope to have some information available by the end of next weekend and by April 1st in terms of what are some best practices on conducting meetings. If you're not sure how to do voting, here are some tips. And if you're at the point where your chapter is still early on and maybe haven't completed your character evaluation, what are some tips and tricks that you can utilize to actually do character evaluation when maybe you can't have activities in person, signature sheets, etc., all the different things that a lot of the chapters do for that process. And let's talk a little bit about the online initiation ceremony. So I contacted Director of Rituals Ed Davignon about 10 days ago, and we discussed the need for some kind of online initiation ceremony because the vast majority of chapters had not conducted their initiation. Some of you haven't even elected candidates. Some of you haven't even notified candidates. So he worked through that and actually developed an online ceremony, which is now complete. He and I collaborated on that and got some feedback on best practices in terms of how to do that. The Executive Council met in a kind of an emergency session this past Thursday and approved it for use. The Constitution allows the Executive Council to adapt to circumstances and approve changes and exceptions to the initiation ritual, and they use that authority to approve this. Ed plans to bring this to convention and let everyone look at it and give it a seal of approval for emergency types of situations. We did a test yesterday afternoon with about 24 members of Tau Beta Pi, some students, some alumni, some officials. So we tested it, got a lot of great feedback on changes to make it work effectively. And tomorrow we will be doing our first chapter pilot of this new online initiation ceremony with Alabama Epsilon at the University of South Alabama has volunteered to pilot it with some of their candidates that are ready to be initiated. And our goal is to release this to the chapters by April 1st. There's a lot of details we're still working out, how to make it available, what recommended platforms to utilize. So I expect many of you may have questions about this and how we're going to do that. So feel free to put those in the chat, or we can touch base with them at the end of the presentation. And the last thing, and to talk about initiation fees, one of the things we asked in the survey of the chapters through the Google form was, how do you collect your initiation fees? And 61% of chapters said that you collect it via cash or check. So that became an obvious issue that we realized many chapters would have an issue collecting initiation fees. So Alex can talk a little bit about what we're exploring to handle that situation.
Yeah, so basically, since we do not currently have an online infrastructure to collect payments, which is something we want to do in the near future and definitely showing that we need it now. But one thing we're going to do now is I'm setting up an option via the Tau Beta Pi store where basically you'll go in and select your chapter, like you'd be selecting a t-shirt, but you're selecting a chapter. And the initiating member would select their chapter or institution and pay the full amount. So if your chapter charges $75, they'd pay $75, and we collect our portion of it. And then at some given point, once all of your members have paid, we can refund or send the amount total paid by your initiated members back to you or credit it to your account, just as a way to have a central source to collect fees right now, because cash and check being the predominant means is probably not going to be effective right now. So we'll hold on to those portions of money until the chapter is ready to receive it in any way. And I am getting to work right now on setting all those up, all 250 different options to select and pay via the store.
So just to kind of summarize where we're at and our priorities for this spring, our number one priority is all of your safety, students, alumni, and our staff. We don't want you guys doing anything, against what's being publicly made available in terms of getting together in groups. So keep that in mind. As much as possible, we're hoping to have approved initiations of new members using our online ceremony. In some cases, groups may choose to postpone some or all of their candidates to the fall. We're hoping to see successful transitions to new officers, and we're hoping to get that configured and set up. And obviously, a priority is to continue operations of chapters virtually and providing the tools and resources for you to make that happen. I think that is it, and we can open it up to questions and answers at this point. So first off, Bill Gooden asked if commencement is going to be in the summer, even September. How can graduating seniors acquire regalia for that time frame? Alex, do you want to touch base on that at all?
Whenever. If the chapter places the order, the individual members place the order now or in 2 months, we'll get it out within 3 to 5 days. A lot of chapters obviously are either postponing the ceremonies or canceling them altogether. But any that we do have, we'd love to get it going. So, just place the order via the store and we'll get it out.
Very good. Another question from Bill Gooden was, can students pay their initiation fee through Venmo? That's a chapter by chapter question. If your chapter is set up to use Venmo and you're comfortable using that, you're more than welcome to use Venmo, PayPal, whatever electronic means you may find better than having it come through headquarters. I do know some schools are pretty adamant about all money has to flow through your student account at your university. So in this case, we're not really breaking that rule because we're paying the money to headquarters and then issuing that money back to that student account. But I know some schools are not allowed to have external bank accounts, not allowed to connect things like Venmo or PayPal. So if that's the situation on your campus, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to offer something through headquarters so that regardless of what your school situation is, you're able to pay those initiation fees. Alec asked if chapters will be able to pay current balances next semester without penalties. Absolutely. We know, again, tying back to some of the school's finances are tied to the chapter. So if the school's not present, it may be really hard to get payment of any fees and dues. So we'll try to work with you on a one-on-one basis to get any extensions on that. Typically, what happens is any chapter that any school has. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Typically, any school that has a balance of $500 or more is passed along to the finance committee at convention and to explain why they have a balance of 500. I think this semester or this year we'll be making a special exception to that because obviously there'll be a lot of chapters that may be carrying balances, and the reason for that would be the current situation. So we'll be taking that into account. And I know Alex, when he evaluates chapters for the Chapter Excellence Award, if you have a balance, that's taken into account. I think we'll be looking at being a lot more flexible with that grading and everything.
Yeah, and just to kind of supplement to that, even beyond just the initiation fees portion of evaluation for the Chapter Excellence, we'll be considering anything that happened in the spring will be kind of looked at with a different scope than in previous years. And I pretty much do the first phase of all the analysis, so I've got it.
Great. Next question from Catherine. Our inductees have to attend a certain number of general body meetings, social service events, plus get professor signatures. Any thoughts or suggestions for virtual social or service events? Or should we give inductees a pass on those if they haven't completed them yet? We don't have a working group yet on chapter activities. I've been thinking about whether or not we should do that. I personally don't have any ideas on what you could do virtually to be social and service, especially given the circumstances. What my recommendation that I've passed along to the group on exemplary character evaluation for this semester is that chapters need to look at what can actually be done virtually and modify their requirements as such, at least for this semester, because it is going to be very, very difficult to do any type of service or social events, anything that involves getting together. That's not precluding that something can be done, but it's a chapter by chapter basis, school by school, campus by campus. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at the requirements for your initiates this semester. And Annie asked, have there been any changes to NEST for those chapters that are doing NEST? And are there any suggestions on implementing NEST for a chapter? That's an excellent question. And this is the first time I have thought about NEST. I've talked to the organizers for that project, and I don't know where they stand. So I will touch base with them and figure out how we're going to move forward with NEST and let all of them know. And of course, now I get the question from Alec, what is NEST? NEST is a project being piloted by a couple schools, or I think a couple districts actually, and I'm trying to pull it up while we're talking so that I can actually pull this up so that all of you can see it. So it's kind of like a national project, design project for chapters that was being piloted this year, with the hopes of launching it more broadly next year. And yeah, of course, I can't find it in my email when I'm actually looking for it. But here we go. I will share my screen so you guys can see this. One moment. Let's see. Hey, Alex, are you still presenting?
Don't think so.
Okay, there we go. Here we go. Oh, there we go. I know why. All right, and here we go. Okay, so NEST, New Engineering Solutions for Tomorrow. It's kind of a design project-based thing. Their topic this year was clean water. If you didn't get invited to participate in NEST, please don't take offense that this is the first time you're hearing about it, because it's quite possible that this is the first time some of you are hearing about it. Mainly, they decided to start this project small with a small subset of the chapters. I think they were targeting 10 to get this started. Again, because they didn't want to have, it was such a potentially big project for chapters and the organization to take on. They wanted to start small this year, and they were going to be presenting it at convention. So as I noted, I will follow up with the district directors that have been working on that project and provide updates on what's going on with that, because again, this would be a challenging project to keep going given the circumstances, but I expect that they've been thinking about what to do next with that. So hopefully that answers your question about NEST at a high level. And again, I'll make this information available so that if you want to go out and see it, you can. There are a couple other things I wanted to just pull up just so that you folks can see. This is what Alex talked a little bit about earlier about the initiation fees.
Screen. I think it's just showing your Firefox window right now.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Let me try to do better this time. All right, let's try this again. All right, can you guys see the store now?
Still the Firefox.
Still Firefox. Wasn't that delightful? I must have picked the wrong screen. How about this? And of course, my windows are now trapped between each other. Okay, so first, before I get to the store, I'll just show, if you haven't had a chance to look at the chapter resource page, this is where we're kind of posting a lot of information. I expect many of you went here for the chapter chats. I've also been posting the semi-weekly updates. I'm going to be posting a bunch of questions that I've gotten and the answers to those questions. So if you are interested at all in posting a question or have a question, feel free to post those out there for everybody to look at. And let's see if I can actually, I'm going to switch this again real quick and see if I can get this back in place. There we go. Okay, I think I've got the right window now. Hopefully now you see the store page.
Yep.
Cool. So as Alex noted, this is the mock-up we're working on right now for the initiation fees. It would be set so that all the chapters would be listed here. We are limited to the number we can put on one page, so there'll be a range. And then part of that survey we asked chapters to respond to actually had the initiation fee in it. We will go and prune the list or make a note if the chapter isn't using this, but that's just an idea of what we're doing in case that is a useful tool for most of the chapters. Annie posted something to Catherine, and that's great about the chapters trying movie night through Netflix, online gaming sites, try a Zoom individual, bent polishing social. Great ideas. Tutoring service for K-12 students. That's actually an excellent idea. I know there are a lot of parents right now that are put in a situation of homeschooling and teaching in areas that aren't their areas of expertise. Alex had a question about the name related or keeping track of who paid what. Yes, so the initiation fee, this is kind of like just buying an item. So in this case, you would go and select your chapter so you get the right price. You'd add it to the cart, and then during checkout, you would go and put in your name, credit card, all that kind of jazz. So we'd get that information and make sure it gets credited to the right chapter.
Yeah, and I can also add a different free-form text box field where if we wanted to get somebody's full name, just in case there were any name issues to avoid any confusion, that takes me 2 seconds, so I can add that as well.
And Natalie talked a little bit about the chapter vice president helping organize study groups for members and their classmates, trying to use chapter projects to help mitigate problems that students are going to face now that we've moved to fully online format for the remainder of the semester. Very good. I think those are the big things I wanted to present on the screen to all of you, so I will stop sharing now. And did anyone have any other questions that haven't been put in the chat that you wanted to bring up, or any questions from anybody on the phones? Okay. Hearing no questions, I think that's, oh wait, we got it, here we go. Let's see, Bill said, so the payment website will keep track of who has paid and who has not. That's the trick where we will not, we won't know who hasn't paid, but our plan would be to provide on request information for your chapter on who has paid. Part of our process as we develop how we would actually do this, we would, the store issues a receipt when you purchase something. So part of the process, if a chapter opts to utilize the store for initiation fees, one of the requirements would be then to pass or forward that email on to the chapter officers, the treasurer, whoever, to actually notify that your chapter initiation fees have been paid. But if a chapter did have a request, we can go into our store and figure out who has paid.
Yeah.
Any other questions for this evening? All right. Well, hearing no questions, that's always a good sign. Oh, wait, here we go. Ah, okay.
Sounded funny.
Mike is our director of finance and operations. He's also on this call. And he said, if you have any questions, you can always contact accounting@tvp.org for information on your chapter balances, what's been paid, etc.
Kurt or Alex,
Yes, sir.
when people pay their initiation fee, the initiates, is their name recorded? Or in the case where their parents' Visa card might be used, their name would be put in? Is there any problem of confusion because of that?
Yeah, so that might be, I'm definitely going to add on to the store page that Kurt showed a field where it'll be the candidate's name, where they'll have to type it to place the order.
Right.
So to avoid them going in and then us looking at the billing address and seeing a parent's name or whoever's name, we'll grab the exact name on the actual order screen.
Okay. That'll
That's
take
not there
care of
right
it.
now, but I'll add it
Thanks.
on.
Great.
Russ, good tip.
Thanks.
All right. There don't seem to be any other questions. As I noted, feel free to go out to that Google site and post any additional questions that you may have. We'll try to keep everyone as up to date as possible. And hearing no other questions or comments, we will close out this session. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. And as I noted, we will be putting up this presentation, updating our frequently asked questions, and distributing this online for anybody who would like to see it who wasn't able to join us tonight. So thank you for your time, and have a good night and a good week.
Okay. Great initial chat. Keep it up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
You too.